if you cut a tree and you burn it straight away, okay, you create energy. You could even make electricity with that. That's pellets and that sort of thing. Well, in fact, you cut the tree, you burn it. Okay, we can say that the ashes could go back to the forest in theory, and create this cycle. But in the meantime, you forgot all the potential that the wood has to be beams or veneer or insulation or particle boards or insulation materials or paper or whatever before it's burned. It's the same with energy. Today, you have to know that in Sweden, and I think in Denmark, at least in Sweden, you cannot have a gas boiler in your house anymore. A gas boiler is burning gas at 1200 degrees and using water at 40 degrees. It means that you have lost all the opportunity of that cooling down, which the industry is doing very well. Through a power plant, you produce electricity, that the water is coming out at, let's say, between 200 and 600 degrees, can go to an industry, then it can go in greenhouses to grow plants, and then it can go into some offices or other use at different temperature, and then in residential. So at least now in Sweden, you have to do at least electricity when you burn gas and heat your house, okay, with micro cogeneration or different Stirling engine and that sort of thing. It shows that even in the existing fossil fuel energy production, there is, and this is not a joke, I had a course about 3 hours with Professor Lescure of TU Delft. I could not repeat it all, but it would take an hour for what I remember. But basically, if this is 100%, now what we do when we burn gas and we use it in residential, we use only 4 to 5% of the exergy. The exergy is the potential of the gas at the beginning to produce energy. It means that when you are told that a very efficient condensation gas heater is 100% effective, in fact it's 100% of 5%. So it's 6% effective compared to the 100% at the beginning. And this the industry knows very well, because the industry needs money and needs to save money when it runs. And in fact, why don't we do that in cities? So that's something we work on, is to actually have this system in cities. And when we can replace gas maybe with biogas or other sources, then in the meantime, you will have make sure that you are most effective and with a positive impact in all the domains. It's the same thing with real estate value. If you start investing in a building, you put millions of euros in material in a building. Let's take an office building for instance, or a residential building. And then you'll put, after a few years, it will be used, let's say maybe rented a few times and change of users, and then maybe change of use. It's a reuse of the building. Maybe it's from office to residential. A lot of that is happening, or office to hotel. And then you could reuse the components of the building, but at each time, in fact, your material is in fact losing value because you need to invest more to keep the building going. What is important is normally, if you cannot reuse the material, this line is down here. It's a negative value. Go to any demolition company, and he will say, oh, this building is 200,000 euros to demolish. And he will take the material and distribute it in a safe way or not. It depends. But it's not the building owner, or it's not the pension fund, or whoever put the money in up front that is actually taking the benefit. So you put millions of euros into materials in a building, and you have to pay to get rid of at the end, or during the life of the building, because every time you have transformation, refurbishment, and all that. And that's where the build-up-on side of it is very important. If you don't value what you have, then it's a waste, and it's a negative value, because you have to pay to get rid of it in general. And some people, very clever, use it in a proper way, and demolition people tend to make a lot of money. But it's not going in the pocket of the investor at the beginning. This is what we're working on now. In general, commodities, raw materials, the price is going up. We can say today, in fact, it's quite low because China is not asking so much steel and all that for the moment, so the price dropped. But globally, it's going up because it's getting rare. That there is no other way. what is rare is expensive, and everything is getting rarer and rarer because we're just taking in nature, and it has an end. And some ends are very short, as I said, for copper, but it's the case for many other materials. And during the time these materials go up, in fact, the value of the material in your building normally goes down. So how to make sure to climb the stairs again? First of all, you need to do the inventory of what you have, then to do the assessment of what it is and what you can do with it, value it, make sure you know where it is, what and what you can do with it. Then at the very beginning of the project is designed for quality. Quality has a value, and it's not always the cheapest thing that is a good solution. Sometimes you pay a bit more, but you have more added value at the end in your building. And then is to make sure you do systems partnership. Systems partnership is mutualization. It's avoid redundancy. It's work also, like they've done in Holland on the project I was mentioning, Co2 Capture. They make partnership with the authorities, with the architects, with the engineers, with the contractor, with all the suppliers. It's a partnership that works until these people are doing their best. If they don't do their best, they are replaced in the process for the next building and the next and then the next. This is how, in fact, the economical cradle-to-cradle model is. Now, although it's difficult to put values on that, it is, as I said, already taken into account by a lot of pension funds in Holland, and it's coming to Belgium, and we're trying to push that in France with Société Générale and people like that. Banks need new values. Since 2008, probably from before, but they need new values, and they need new reality behind the figures that are in the bank. Now, jumping on the CO2 capture. This is a project we're doing in Brussels, which is on top of a new building on a very large site. I'll give more details afterwards. Next to an old abattoir, as I said, a slaughterhouse, and the cattle market, which is now used as a normal market. And in fact, on a new food hall, which is like an internal market with a lot of butchers and fruit, vegetable, and fish, we are actually building a 4,000 square meter greenhouse, and well, sorry, 2,000 square meter greenhouse and 2,000 square meter external garden. This is urban farming. You can see it here, which is basically capturing CO2 from underneath, capturing the wasted heat, fatal heat from the fridges underneath, and it's producing food with rainwater and sun in a very, very high quality. It's organic 2.0, really. So that's under development now, and it's something we're working on with ECF, which is German partners. We've done it in Berlin on the ground, and done it in Switzerland on the building. It's basically take a building plus agriculture is cradle-to-cradle or circular economy. This is the principle of producing food, and we can start to have productive buildings that are improving the performance of the building, because all the wasted heat is used to produce food. So in fact, there's no wasted heat anymore. CO2 from people or CO2 from cogeneration is used to grow plants safely, which is the most difficult part. And then, of course, we reduce transport, logistics, we create local employment, we create quality food, we reuse water, we create humus, and so on, and so on, and so on. This is one of the most virtuous type of project we've found, and that's why we've decided to develop that with this company, Building Integrated Greenhouse. Now, it's a big challenge, because everything is new, and you can imagine that it's difficult for the local authorities, the fire brigade, the contractors, they don't know what it is, and you have to add something quite heavy on the roof of a building or next to a building, and so it's quite a challenge. Now, water and nutrients. I've worked for many years with specialists. The first one was John Todd, who invented the concept of living machine from United States. And we installed such a system in the Berlaymont building, but it was never used. We can treat all water in a building. I've designed 2 buildings that are 95% autonomous in water. And we are doing another one, we're helping on another one in Lille for a hotel. It works for a restaurant, it works extremely well for residential project. And this is an example by Clausanne. I showed it earlier on. the East Berlin district, and now this is the park in the middle, where basically when everyone flushes the toilet or takes a shower, he knows he's bringing something positive to the community, which is a completely different. Yeah, it's like CO2 becomes something positive. Wastewater becomes, in fact, feeding water for something which is creating the garden, and even biogas and other things in the park in the middle. Then there are other systems that are more technical. I'm sorry, I'm showing brands here, but because these are unique systems. This is a system we found. We were working on the Hospital of the Future in France, and this system takes all the waste from the hospital, including arms and legs, everything that goes out of the hospital, including biological plastic plates and glasses and syringes and everything, and basically grinds it, put it in water, and then from that water you produce biogas, clean water, humus, and heat for the hospital, which is quite a lot from waste. And at the same time you avoid any contamination by elements that have been touched by people in the hospital to go through the corridors. So it's improving health in the hospital, it's reducing the nosocomial bacteria and all that in the hospital. You know that very often when you go for an operation you come out with more bugs than you had at the beginning. It's sometimes very difficult to get rid of, or even mortal. Biodiversity, again, that's a project in Holland. The whole building, the whole site is being turned gradually into a farm. There is a lot more biodiversity now than there was at the beginning, and it starts to produce food. They have greenhouses. They ask us to work on a couple of greenhouses, but also have plants helping cleaning the air